Today I'm going to show you the new player experience in Dragonheir Silent Gods, and for this particular playthrough, I'm going to be going 100% free to play, although there are plenty of upgrades that you can obtain and purchase your way into. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the game, Dragonheir Silent Gods is a Western, fantasy-themed open-world role-playing game with mechanics and encounters reminiscent of tabletop gaming, but you pair that up with some really sweet graphics, and this is a very fun game to play. I mean, it was made by Newverse, and for those that don't know, that's the distributor of Marvel Snap. Now, this video isn't about Marvel Snap. I really enjoyed that game, though, so I'm hyped to play another game made by the same distributor. Now, Dragonheir Silent Gods, as of the time of this recording, has had over 10 million downloads in less than a month after release, making them ranked #1 on the download leaderboard for 13 regions. And starting from today, the game is available now on Steam. In fact, a big thank you to the makers of Dragonheir Silent Gods for sponsoring today's video. If you want to download the game, check out the link in the description. You can play from and download from the Epic Games Store, Mac, on Android, iOS, or now, as of the time of this video being live, you can also download via Steam. And thank you again for using that link in the description. That does support the channel. You can link your account so you can take your progress through all available platforms and devices, which includes Steam. So if you've already been playing Dragonheir Silent Gods, for example, on your iPhone, you can start playing with the Steam version on your very same account. So let's get going with the journey here, and we'll also watch a little bit of the game trailer. As I talk about the story of this game revolves around your character, portrayed as the traveler who's suddenly woken up into a new shattered world while having lost their memories. Now, you have some freedom to customize your character, and you can choose between 4 different races. You can either be human, a dwarf, a half-elf, or lizard folk, and each of these has different attributes and stats that can suit your playstyle, depending on which parts of the gameplay you want to leverage. So for example, I went with a build in one of my playthroughs of this game where I emphasized Constitution, and that stat made me particularly good in drinking competitions. Of course, there are wisdom checks, strength checks, and more, so what you choose is relevant, but don't fret over it. In certain situations, you'll be advantaged, and in certain situations, you'll be a little disadvantaged, depending on your stat distribution. As you adventure, you'll regain your lost memories and uncover the secrets of Adenthia. You'll form your team, ranging from almost 200 unique heroes to choose from. So that could include you and many other heroes to make a team of 5 that you'll ultimately go and fight with. Now, each of these heroes has a variety of traits and elements and alignments and classes, giving you an immense amount of strategic ways that you can diversify and craft your dream lineup based on the enemy that you're ultimately fighting. And this is very important. This is not a game where you make one team and that's what you use the rest of the time you're playing the game. You make different teams to handle different situations, and there are always strengths and weaknesses to each of the teams that you form. Now, the world sort of opens up as you experience a variety of diverse puzzles and tons of NPC quest lines at the start, although don't worry, there is PvP in this game. And as you go through these different quest lines and as you fight, you'll do a bunch of dice roll checks against those base stats that we were talking about earlier. And those are actually really important and will have an impact on your storyline's direction. Now, it is really thrilling to experience these sort of dice rolls and the outcomes because it mixes it up. Sometimes when you think you're going to win, you roll a 1. And GG. Sometimes you just get wrecked. Other times you think you have no chance. Boom, you roll a 20. Amazing outcome drops from that. You get the thing that you're looking for. So I've really enjoyed that aspect of the game, but let's actually get to the combat and show you what this looks like. Dragonheir opens the door for some really explosive fights, and you can come up with some really cracked combos when you have the right hero formations and the right combination of heroes. So there really are several things we need to talk about. First of all, the fact that you make a formation. you put your heroes onto a grid, and that determines who they're going to attack and who they will be attacked by. From there, your heroes have different abilities, including an ultimate ability, where you will activate it, and in many cases, you will target it. So depending on what the hero does, that ultimate ability could be a big heal. It could be huge area of effect damage. It could involve perhaps stunning your enemy. It could involve single target damage. I mean, there's so many different ways that these heroes and their ultimate fights or ultimate abilities change up the nature of the fight. In fact, even the environment itself is often interactive. For example, there's one particular obstacle that looks sort of like a little swirling hurricane that will propel you into the back line of the enemy. I mean, there's a bunch of different things on the grid that can kind of change the outcome of the battle, and being smart about how you leverage the terrain is important in every single fight. Now, as I mentioned, I started the journey on this account in order to show you what the free-to-play experience is like, and just to see kind of what the overall experience is like without sort of wailing, because, hey, that's a thing that I often do in mobile games. And so far, my journey has been really fun and engaging, and it challenges me to really use the strategies and the combos appropriately in order to get wins. Starting in the Chaos Universium, I started to form my team by recruiting some of the default heroes that like everybody gets at the start of the game, but I later expanded my roster by doing some of my own summons, which are kind of like chest openings in Rise of Kingdoms, with certain chances to obtain different rarities of heroes. Of course, we're all hunting for legendary heroes, and I've made videos where I pull for legendary heroes. Card will be up in the top. Now, this was my main source of obtaining new heroes, and looking at the different skills and abilities that each one would have enabled me to very much enhance the sort of team I built for combat. Now, each hero has 3, sometimes 4 skills. Every hero has a passive skill, something like, for example, giving you 20% attack buff to your whole team, as well as a battle skill. This is cast periodically as you fight. It is not something that you personally activate. And then there is the ultimate skill, which is what you cast and target when you're in combat, and you need to have your energy bar full in order to go and be able to do that. Now, some ultimate abilities are extremely powerful and need to be used very tactically. Others, you just spam them on cooldown to bang out sort of as much damage or shielding or healing or whatever as you can. And some heroes have a 4th skill. This is called an aura or a captain skill. And in certain battles, this aura skill will take effect and act as a team-wide passive effect. For example, my Horus gives all of my allies 24% increased max hit points. These can be a game changer. Now, some auras are active in battles. And when we talk about strengthening your lineup, we really do need to talk about the elements. Each hero it's got an affinity with an element. For example, there's fire or poison, and you get increased buffs when you have heroes with matching affinities. These affinity bonuses apply when you have a team of either 3 or 5 heroes that all sort of share a synergy. And having these synergies in place gives you a bunch of really powerful buffs. And once I started doing that, my teams started to really level up with their punch as well. This is particularly important if you don't overpower the sort of encounters that you're up against. You need to stack things in your favor as much as you can. Now, heroes take a little bit of time to get leveled, and Dragonheir has an action point system like you'd experience in Rise of Kingdoms, but it's called stamina. Now, I've been using my stamina regularly to sort of make sure that it isn't capped. You never want to be wasting your free value, especially if you're free to play, with the stamina. So you want to be spending that down regularly, and often I spend this down by jamming my way through the Goblin Lair. Now, I actually covered the Goblin Lair in a separate video, which I'll have linked in the end screen of this one, but I'll summarize it as a dungeon, and it's one of the good ways to sort of go and get experience potions to level up your heroes, which, like, yes, I want to level up my heroes. Now, with this, there are actually also 3 different domains that I got access to that included the Frost domain, the Flame domain, and the Tempest domain, and clearing them gave me their respective crystals, which you use to star up your heroes. So your heroes can level up a lot, but you get capped at level 30 and then again at level 50 based on applying crystals to the hero and allowing them to gain more levels. So realizing that, I started to double down on leveling up the heroes that were most important to me. And in the downtime of my fights, there actually was a lot of important stuff to do as well to set me up for success. For example, I took time in my camp, which every player has, to go and cook and forge, and to even use my training dummy. So let me walk through some of these things that you'll experience as a new player. First of all, the training dummy is super helpful. It's basically a tutorial that walks you through a series of missions designed to teach you the mechanics of the game. Very, very critical. It's designed to simulate a real battle with none of the consequences. And this also helps you learn what strategies you might use, why you might be winning or losing, and just unlock different ways to sort of power up your lineup. So this was very, very critical, and it especially translates into the gladiator arena, where you're fighting against player versus player lineups, where tackling someone else's synergies and really understanding the mechanics of the game is very critical to beating them and to ranking up. This is a game mode, by the way, the gladiator arena, that is similar in a lot of ways to Sunset Canyon from Rise of Kingdoms. You can set up your defensive lineup, you set up an attacking lineup, and you go freaking ham on other players. Now, the next thing that we need to talk about in your camp is actually forging. Forging, I mean, you know I like doing some forging over here. Your boy Chisco likes to forge equipment. And I found that once I put equipment on my heroes, my progress went way, way, way faster, and the team powered up a whole heck of a lot. So you can forge to create equipment, and you can upgrade that equipment in order to get more stats to put on your heroes, and you will need to pay attention to what stats are on the equipment in order to sort of pair it with the best possible hero choices. So, you know, if you've got a tank, you want to make them more tanky. When you have DPS heroes, you want to make them do more damage. And the last thing I want to talk about from my camp, and there are other things that we will talk about, is cooking. Cooking helps you prepare for fights, and the basic tonic is just a healing potion, which really makes a big deal to go into a fight with full health. Every single fight you do, the health of your heroes carries over. So one little trick I like to do is I'll sometimes let a fight run long to give my healer a chance to heal the rest of my team before the fight ends. But the other option is, if you're going into a fight low health, use some of the food that you've prepared in order to heal your heroes. This is crucial. As an example, you can cook some food that also gives buffs in fights. I made a corrupted meat pie that gave all my heroes a poison damage boost and attack for 10 minutes, and that can be a very, very critical buff to your troops or your heroes as you go and do these different fights. So overall, I would say my progress has been really good, and the story has been really interactive and engaging. I'm especially engaged when I get wrecked in a dice roll, but it's also really fun to slay it on the dice roll as well. And I've been leveling this account free to play, although probably in subsequent videos, I will switch gears with this account and go make some purchases and talk about what some of those most ideal purchases are. So if that's the sort of thing you want to see, consider subscribing. And if you enjoyed this description of the Dragonheir Silent God's journey, at least what I've done so far on this free-to-play account, then definitely check the link in the description to download the game. As I mentioned, it's now live on Steam, and it's also in the Epic Game Store. It's on Mac, it's on Android, it's on iOS, it's on so many platforms, I might even be forgetting one. So check the link in the description. It's probably available on whatever platform you want to play on. And big thank you again to Dragonheir Silent Gods for sponsoring this video. Now, as I mentioned, I have done a bunch of pulls in the past on Heliolite dice, and you can get really lucky and get some really cool heroes. So if you want to see what that looks like, I'll have a card in the end screen for that in just a second. Hope you'll check it out, and until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.